Hey everybody, welcome. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Matthew. Today I am going to answer the question, how likely is Balaji Srinivasan's $1 million Bitcoin bet? All right, so back to a trendline analysis here with percentile bands. And as is the case typically with Bitcoin, you can see in the tooltip here, there's a lot of data points on this slide, yet you can only really make out one. And that is because we always have to look, due to the Bitcoin pricing, the nature of the Bitcoin pricing data over the last 13 years of pricing history, we always have to look at Bitcoin on log scale. So we're going to do that right here. And this is probably the most trend lines I've ever drawn on one video. So I'm going to try to keep this very short, very simple as possible. Let's see how much I succeed over the course of this video. All right. This is the Bitcoin pricing chart over log scale. Much better look on log than linear. It's as of yesterday. Okay, so zoomed in very much here. March 20th, yesterday, Bitcoin closed day end UTC time, $28,095. And last week on St. Patrick's Day, Balaji made this bet, $1 million Bitcoin by June 15th, basically, 90 days from St. Patrick's Day. So that's right here, denoted in the timeline. That is when his bet will expire. So for his bet to work, basically, he needs Bitcoin to go from around $30,000 as of March 20th. For 90 days, it's going to have to go up $970,000 to reach 1 million. I'm going to reset the zoom here and again, remind everyone, this is caveat emptor always when you talk about where prices can go. Do your own research. Of course, this is not financial advice, never investment advice. But as I've done with a lot of my videos, I think the best way that you're going to be able to understand where prices have been, where they can go, is to understand a trend line. So I'm going to draw a trend line here. This is a 95% R-squared power regression trend line over the life of Bitcoin. Do see my prior videos for more on this. Remember, this is a power trend line. This is not an exponential trend line. This is not a logarithmic trend line. This certainly is not a linear trend line. So as this is log scale, we start very, very low here, under $1, even under a penny. I go back to Bitcoin Pizza Day as my first pricing date. Our good friend Laszlo with that famous, not first Bitcoin barter transaction, but first kind of recognized Bitcoin barter transaction. 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. We're under $100 all during this period, and now we're over $20,000, over $28,000 as of yesterday, although that has slipped a little bit as of this recording. Nonetheless, of the 4 main types of trend lines, the power curve, all right, and definitely do see my prior videos on that, is the one that fits the best. And a 95% R squared is an amazing goodness of fit, which Bitcoin has been holding now for many, many years. And we'll talk about that a little bit here. The next thing I want to say, of course, as a little disclaimer, I'm aware what he's been saying about this. He knows, as you perhaps know, as I certainly know, that for Bitcoin to go up $970,000 within the next 90 days, that is indeed hyper-Bitcoinization. Bitcoin has not even hit $70,000 during this double top of 2021. We've talked about all this, and I've even done plenty of analysis how the beauty of trend lines, remember, we can predict out. And I go all the way to 2030 here. And on this best fitting for Bitcoin, 95% R squared, you get to just over $650,000 Bitcoin based on trend alone by December 31st, 2030. All right, just over $650,000 per Bitcoin. Balaji needs that to happen and more within the next 90 days, okay? And trend, by the way, you can see just the way that the gradualness of this very good fit trend, it's $50,000 now. The trend right now is $50,000, so we are under it. We are under trend by $22,000, roughly. And the trend, just the trend itself, by the date of his bet expiry will go up to $55,000. So from $50,000 to $55,000, that's what the trend says. And of course, he needs the price to well overshoot trend and go to $1 million. So again, I'm well aware of what he's trying to do with this, bring attention to Bitcoin, some good marketing to Bitcoin. I'm talking about this on my Rinky Dig show. I'm well aware that hyper Bitcoinization needs to happen for his bet to win. But nonetheless, we have plenty of data in Bitcoin land statistically to understand what his bet actually means. So let's try to figure it out. What is the likelihood of his bet coming true? All right, so here's the trend line. And the beauty of the power curve is that when we draw it, we can very simply stack on some bands that show us percentiles based on prior data, how likely or unlikely a move in price has been, and perhaps how likely or unlikely that will be in the future. All right, so I'm going to start here. 1 sigma down, 1 sigma up. I've talked about this so much. I'm not going to be so specific and scientific explaining everything in this video. What does it mean? 1 sigma, it very simply means anything that is within these blue dotted lines, any price action, the green shaded area. If it falls within these blue shaded lines, it's 2/3 of the time. It's a 1 sigma event. 2/3 of the time, you're going to find the data falling within these lines. All right. What about 2 sigma? 2 sigma down, 2 sigma up, the purple. That means anything falling within the purple lines. Let's back it out. You can see they're a little bit wider, of course. The range is larger. Anything within a 2 sigma move happens 95% of the time. And very quickly, again, we can see right here that finance is never a bell curve, okay? Because look at 2 sigma down, how close it is to 1 sigma down. See that? Take away the ups. There we go. See how close 2 sigma down is to 1 sigma down. And then if we look at 1 sigma up and 2 sigma up, see how much farther away we need to be to catch an equidistant and opposite 2 sigma up move from the trend line to get up to 95% of the data, showing, of course, that the error is much more rare up here with 2 sigma up. So finance never works in a bell curve. Standard deviations, they're typically done with a bell curve from the mean. This is just percentiles, using the same lexicon as standard deviations, but this is just percentiles around the trend line. So again, anytime you're within these purple bands, you're going to see data that happens 95% of the time. This is daily price action, daily closes for Bitcoin, all the way back to Bitcoin Pizza Day. 95% of the time, they're going to be within these purple bands. 95% R-squared power trend line. It means, this is pretty likely that the price will continue to fall within these bands. And if you want to know what happened here in the last couple months, this was extremely unlikely. We actually hit 2 sigma down events, which rarely happens, okay? Because once you go outside of these purple bands, you're outside a 2 sigma move, you're outside of 95% of all observations in the history of Bitcoin's price on a daily basis, which is 6,500 days or something like that. Very, very rare event. Now let's go 3 sigma moves. What is 3 sigma, all right? Remember, 1 sigma, 2/3 of the time, 2 sigma, 95% of the time, 3 sigma, what is it? 99% of the time. 99% of the time, the pricing data is going to fall within these red lines. And we can already see that I've cluttered the chart here. So I'm just going to remove the 2 and 1 sigmas just to make it, easier. 3 sigma move, all right? To get outside of these red bands, the price would have to move in such a manner that it would only happen 1% of the time. And remember, if you're talking up or down around the trend line, you need to divide that by 2. So it's actually 0.5% of the time above the top red band, 0.5% of the time below the bottom red band. That's how it works with this stuff. So we can see we haven't had a 3 sigma move, not during the 2021 bull run, not during the 2017 bull run. None of the crypto winter at all was close to a 3 sigma down. And a 3 sigma move here did occur back in the day, once a little bit here at the end of 2013 and once here in 2011. This one we'll keep in mind for the future, but very, very rare error. And a little bit here, of course, where we basically had no Bitcoin pricing data. This big jump, by the way, is the Slashdot article where many developers heard about Bitcoin. Went from, a penny basically to 10 cents, something like this. This is how it works. Very, very rare to go outside of a 3 sigma move. So, having said all of that, we can now set the stage for Balaji's bet. What is the trend? What does the actual trend look like based on all-time data, based on this black line, this power regression? What would the trend line look like for his $1 million Bitcoin price to occur by June 15th, 2023? Well, I'm going to draw it right now. There it is. This might not seem like a big difference between 3 sigma up. And remember, 3 sigma up is extremely rare. You're outside of 99% of the observations. But remember, we're on log scale here. So let's just zoom in and let's just look in dollar terms. Let's even take off 3 sigma down, just not to confuse the picture here. We're talking about above the trend line. So again, the way it works, you're talking around the trend line. So this red dotted line is not even 99% of the time, it's 99.5% of the time because we took away 3 sigma down. So you're talking about 0.5% of the time, price action has been above the red dotted line. And let's actually look again. When did that happen? Yes, happened here in 2013, happened here in 2011. Let's go back to where we were here. And again, let's just look at dollars now. March 20th, 2023, $28,000 Bitcoin price. If I can hold it, there we go. $50,000 trend line, a 3 sigma up move. If we were there, the Bitcoin price would need to be $522,000. Now I've backed into what his trend line needs to be, right? To get to $1 million by June 15th, 2023. He should be at $907,000 right now. He should be there for the trend line to hit $1 million. Okay, and let's check that. Let's just walk this out. We're walking out to 90 days to June 15th, 2023. And when will it hit? We're at $999,000. Boom, I got it. I didn't have time to make it exact. I could have gotten you the exact percentage, but $1,823 there with his trend line that needs to occur to basically get him to $1 million by June 15th, 2023. What does that represent sigma-wise, percentile-wise? Well, I show it there in the parentheses. Remember, the red dotted line is 3 sigma up, okay? So that means that 99.5% of all observations actually in the history of Bitcoin are below the red dotted line. In his case, it's 99.9289% of all observations are below the orange line. And I was actually surprised. I thought it would be above 100%. You would need to do that actually to make $1 million when I was thinking about making this chart. But he does catch some historical data. And what does he catch with his trend line? Let's even take away 3 sigma now. Okay, so we're just looking at his trend line. He doesn't catch anything in the 2013 pump, which we did catch with a 3 sigma upline, but he does catch this. All right, he does catch this in 2011. Okay, so in 2011, the price went to $35 per Bitcoin. Let's just zoom in and we can actually count the days. Okay, so his line is about $28. That's the, massive above 3 sigma move that the trend line is making based on the all-time power regression at the time, which is only $2. All right. So his line is $28 per Bitcoin at this point. On June 8th, we moved above his line. There we got $31 per Bitcoin. And let's just count the days now. Actually, I'll zoom in even more so you can see. We're counting the days above the trend line. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we dip down. 4 days. There were 4 days in Bitcoin's pricing history where the price was above his trend line, and his trend line to give us a gradual, smooth move to $1 million Bitcoin by June 15th, 2023. So it's interesting that there is precedent. There is precedent. But now, of course, we need to answer the question of how likely is this going to happen and will it stay? Well, first of all, the percentage is in the pudding right there. This is absolutely true statistically. Okay, so $1 million Bitcoin by June 15th, 2023. I'm going to answer the question now I posed at the beginning. Let's zoom in. $1 million Bitcoin price by June 15th, 2023. As I said, the proof is in the pudding. It is 99.9289% likely that will not happen statistically. 99.9289% likely that's not going to happen. There were only 4 days of observations where the price kicked above this trend line. All right. And that would be, I have it here. It's just basically 1 minus this percentage. So it's 0.0711%. Just wanted to read it to make sure I had it exactly right. It is 0.0711% likely based on the statistical data of the best fitting trend line in Bitcoin's 13-year plus pricing history, that the price will be above $1 million by June 15th, 2023. So of course, now we have to go back to why he did it. For marketing, it's obvious. The bit signal, as he said, and I'm sure you, dear viewer, and myself very much sympathize with the goodness of Bitcoin and all the good things that it can offer. That's not the point of this video. There's only 2 ways that this can basically happen. One is hyper Bitcoinization, where literally the world goes into Bitcoin in the next 90 days. And I'm not saying that's not possible. It's totally possible. But statistically, the only other way that it would happen is an extremely rare pump in the price, just extremely rare. And we already know that it's a pump of $930,000 worth. And let's just put the 3 sigma back up, because remember, this is log scale to show you the difference. 3 sigma up, a 3 sigma up move is $576,000. That's a 3 sigma up move. That's an above 99.5 percentile move, above a 99.5 percentile event to happen. All right, that's $500,000 plus more than the Bitcoin price has ever been. And then, of course, you got to tack on another $425,000 to get to $1 million. All right, to get to the rare air which he is speaking of. So it's so rare. It's either A, hyper Bitcoinization, that is totally a possibility, but B, based on the way, let's not forget how this stuff works. Okay, this trend line is a 95% R squared trend line for good reason. It's sometimes above. The price is sometimes above the black line. It's sometimes below the black line. But notice how it never stays there when it goes into this rare air. Okay, so let's go back to the only time it pierced it at the end of 2011, which coincidentally was the same time. I think this was the day, June 10th, 2011. Bitcoin hit $35 an ounce. There was actually a flash crash intraday, and then it fell to the end of the year here down to like $2 or $3 per Bitcoin. This was the first time that Mark Karpelès suffered a hack at the MT Gox exchange in Japan. So again, you got to go way back to 2011 to see when this happened. And it's not like it stayed there. All right, this is the other thing to keep in mind here with $1 million Bitcoin price target. It was there for 4 days. 4 days, the Bitcoin price was above his trend line. Okay, and then the other thing, I also have this other trend line just to show you. The other reason why you have to understand how wild of a price prediction this is this black line. Let's take everything else off. This black line, all right, the 95% R squared. This is such an incredibly strong trend line because it has 6,500 plus days of data, 13 plus years of pricing data. It's incredibly strong. Let's look at the trend line that would have been drawn back in this day, all right, back till the end of 2011, okay? Have it right here, denoted by the tomato and a dotted black line. All right, it's much steeper. It's much steeper. So it probably still was a 2 to 3 plus sigma percentile move up because it was so extreme, even for this time. But you were having big moves anyway in 2011. Remember the Slashdot article, you went from a penny to 10 cents, then back down a little bit, so on and so forth. You get above $1, you fall a little bit, and then you're all of a sudden above $35 a year later. Like, these are massive moves. Yeah, maybe we would have been above 3 sigma anyway, but the nature of the trend line is way different. This dotted trend line, the tomato trend line, is way different than today. And to show you this, I've actually explained this before. I'm sure I'll do it in the future. Okay, the R squared isn't as good. the way that this is projecting out, the dotted line, the data ends on December 31st, 2011. Okay, so I'm only looking at 2010 and 2011 pricing data for this black dotted line. All right, so you go all the way out past his bet expiry, and we go all the way out to 2030. Remember, what is the price based on our very, very solid 95% R squared, $650,000 Bitcoin? What is it based on the tomato trend line of 2011? Nearly $3 billion Bitcoin. You are reading that correctly. $3 billion Bitcoin. That is the trend that Bitcoin was on in 2011. Okay, so this is why you can also see with statistics, data that's deeper and deeper in the past, it's less valuable. Okay, so the trend line was like this, very, very steep. But as more data comes down where the price is below and below that trend line, it starts to fall. It starts to fall. Now, you might actually be looking at this, and I've done other videos on this. I'll continue to do it. You might be thinking, oh, it's just going to continue to fall, 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 fall. No, actually, no. The black line, keep in mind, the black line is not the low. If you looked at the trend lines on every year-end close, the black line, I believe it was 2016 was the low. So there is a trend line that's a little bit lower than this all-time black solid line that you see here. So let's look again at the 2011 trend line. It did fall, right? As long as the price is under that trend line, it will bring the all-time trend line down, down, down to where it is today. It's down to here, $50,000 Bitcoin now is trend. $650,000 Bitcoin is trend by 2030. But there were years where it was even lower. So don't think it always falls either. This is a very strong trend line. It's actually up from 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They're all very similar trend lines to the all-time solid black line here. So there's a lot to keep in consideration there, to keep in mind regarding this bombastic $1 million Bitcoin price target that Balaji has set for all of us and himself on June 15th, 2023. But just to show you sort of the nature of how rare that truly is, it's only two things can happen. One, as he says, it could be hyper-Bitcoinization. However that looks, I'm not sure it's necessarily peaceful if it happens in 90 days. I'm not sure I want to see that. But it could be hyper-Bitcoinization where everybody's scrambling to get Bitcoin and we never go back. That absolutely could happen. Or it's just an extremely rare, and by the way, you see 3 sigma plus there. It's between 3 or 4 sigma style of an event, which is so rare. I mean, just statistically, you remember in your operations management classes where, they had the old 6 sigma. 6 sigma is an incredibly high efficiency, world-class type of production rate where it's, something like 40 units per million are faulty, right? This is the Jack Welch 6 sigma philosophy, okay? Anytime you go above 3 sigma, you're already in the 99th percentile, okay? So we're there. He is somewhere between 3 and 4. 6 sigma is even way up there to show you how crazy that is. It's like 99.99999%, something like that. He is at 99.9289%. That is what he is projecting. That's what needs to happen. That's the trend line that has that can be built based on $1 million price target from June 15th, 2023. And it's only been pierced once, way back in 2011. The 2011 trend line was way different than the all-time trend line. You need to keep all of that in mind, of course. It's either A, hyper-Bitcoinization, or B, just an insane pump that might pierce it for 4 more days or 5 days and then fall back down. Those are your only options to hit $1 million Bitcoin. It's not like it's just going to go there and stay there unless we have hyper-Bitcoinization. So caveat emptor, as always, never financial advice. I think it's interesting, thought-provoking, the bet that he put out there, but these are the actual numbers. This is the likelihood. And by the way, if you want to go out to 2030, besides our tomato trend line from 2011, his, to stay on trend from what he says, right? Bitcoin being $1 million by June 15th, 2023, you'd have $11.8 million Bitcoin by 2030. So there you have it. Balaji's $1 million Bitcoin prediction within the next 90 days. That is a 3 to 4 sigma style event. extremely rare based on the trend. Above 99.9289% of all observations based on this 95% R-squared power regression. It would be a move unlike any other, perhaps maybe what we saw in June of 2011, which we saw for 4 days. Maybe it could happen. Maybe we'd have hyper-Bitcoinization, but statistically, it does not suggest so. Caveat emptor. Be careful out there. Thanks for watching.